Social conservatives have always looked at John McCain's record and said, yeah, he votes with us, but we don't really think he believes it. In picking Sarah Palin, he has convinced many of them, he actually does believe it. He actually does want the things we want. And remember, the Republican base has been dispirited from the rout of 2006. The president is unpopular, even among many factions in his own party. And John McCain criticizes Republicans from time to time, including in the Republican primaries and in his big convention speech. So Republicans did need a boost of morale. And in that sense, they say Sarah Palin is a great shot in the arm. And when you say, well, is she ready for Washington? Many of the voters you encounter say, we don't care. It's a lot like the mood you had with Ross Perot back in 1992. They think Washington needs to be turned upside down, if not worse, and they think a newcomer and a fresh face is just the type to do it.
John, while you've been talking, we've been watching the left-hand side of the screen. The plane they call the Straight Talk Express 2 has obviously landed on board Sarah Palin and her husband. We're told her kids are on the ground. Jessica Yellen is also in the crowd. Jessica, if you can hear me, do you see where her kids are? What is the plan? What is going to happen in the next few minutes?
The kids are here, but they're not in view yet. She's going to get off the plane. She'll be walking through this crowd, which Anderson is enormously excited. They've been chanting Sarah for more than an hour now. She'll come in and be introduced by her husband. First she'll be greeted, by her kids when they're brought down, introduced by her husband and give remarks. And I'll tell you, the folks here see her as the sort of opportunity for Alaska to be known. They describe her as the kind of individualist who represents what they think their state is about, the sense of independence, and they say call her a reformer. A little factoid for you, where we are right now, where this plane is landing, is across the street from the site where her husband finishes his Ironman races. You know, those snow machine races? He pulls in right across the street. So this is an area they're very familiar with. And there's a quote in the local paper this morning saying that this is going to be America's opportunity to see firsthand just how popular Sarah Palin is in Alaska. We've reported on the poll numbers, but seeing it in person at a rally is something different. You know, I've covered a lot of Obama rallies. This is a much, much smaller crowd, but the kind of excitement and passion and intensity, it's that nature. It's what you've seen at those early Obama rallies, something very different from what we saw around McCain in the early days of his race.
And again, to point out...
And they're eager for her to get off this plane and say hi.
And to David Gergen's earlier point, hard to believe we are sitting around watching. This is a vice presidential candidate arriving home to Alaska. 2 weeks ago, very few people in this country, in the world, knew who Sarah Palin was. Clearly, that is very different. Let's keep that full screen. I don't think people need to see me anymore. I think more people are interested in this picture. Let's just listen into the crowd just a little bit. Again, we're not in control of this camera. This is a pool camera. There's the pilot. Not sure how many times the pilot has seen this either, but judging the fact that he's taking pictures of the crowd. But just trying to listen in and see what the crowd sound like.
Alaska. This is a very historic moment. The door is opened up. The door is opened up. Let's go now.
Then you hear somebody exhorting the crowd. That is not anyone from our network. That's just someone there who is telling the crowd what is going on. It's interesting, the crowd is chanting Sarah. The man is exhorting the crowd to chant McCain, Palin. But clearly this is a hometown crowd, and they want to see Sarah Palin. Also her husband, to my knowledge, we're told her husband's going to introduce her. I've never heard him speak publicly.
I haven't either. So that's kind of fun. I mean, it's always, I remember waiting at the Republican convention to hear Cindy McCain talk in an entire speech. Obviously, she's introduced her husband. So, I mean, he's a Mr. Mom. It will be really interesting to see what he says about this woman. So that's, that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting what she says when she hits home base and what she has to say to a crowd that already pretty much knows her record, so she doesn't have to go through that. I also was sitting here thinking, we sometimes forget the history of this. This is the first time the Republicans have had a number two that was a female on the ticket. And it's obviously history for Alaska, because I am fairly certain they haven't had a candidate on either the Republican or the Democratic ticket. So, there's some history here that's really worth noting at this point.
David Gergen, as you watch this, can this last? Can this sort of, I mean, it's been a kind of a honeymoon period for Sarah Palin. Can it go on much longer?
It's unimaginable to me, Anderson. It's unimaginable. You'd almost think that this was Straight Talk 1, that they ought to rename the plane, with her arriving on it, because she's sort of so dominant now. She's sort of like the transcendent figure on both sides. And I do not think that can last, but I don't know how it's going to come out. I think it's one of these, mysteries of American politics that she may go on and help John McCain win this election. She may be the driving force behind that, but she could also, this is a shooting star that could flame out, that could implode. There's a lot of ennobles attached to this, but for the moment, it's just, this is wild. It is unbelievable to me that we're sitting here at 11:30 at night Eastern Standard Time watching this. Just unbelievable.
I'm told that that's a man named John Reeves who was exhorting the crowd at the airport there in Fairbanks. John Reeves talking to the crowd, getting them going. Obviously, doesn't need to get them going very much, because this is a crowd which is eagerly anticipating seeing her first time back in Alaska. Tomorrow there's supposed to be a ceremony for her son's unit, which will be shipping off, and there she is. All the members of her family there. You see Bristol and Trigg. Again, we're told she's supposed to walk into that hangar we saw earlier. Jessica Yellen, I'm not sure where you are. Can you describe what you're seeing?
I am seeing a huge crowd of people run toward the site where she's arriving. They've been playing the Top Gun theme. People have been chanting her name. It rounds of Sarah and Palin. There's an enormous sense of pride over this. They both love her for who she is and for what this means for their state and their kids, the attention they're getting. They keep saying this is a friendly, warm place, Alaska, and not actually warm in temperature, but in the way they treat each other here. And they want to show that through Sarah Palin. And obviously, a fabulous homecoming for her first time back since this all happened. And the reception here would be what any person would want, an enormously warm feeling in this crowd, Anderson.
David Gergen, what do you think as you're watching this?
Well, you've got to give her credit. I mean, look, I'm very skeptical about a lot of this, but she's getting a warm homecoming. She deserves this as a chance to be with her own people and receive their plaudits, their thanks, and their salute. And she does have a son going to Iraq. For all of that, you've got to say, that you've got to give her credit for what this is. But it sure is. I think it's rare to the point of being bizarre.
In a race that has been nothing but bizarre for the last year and a half, I don't think anybody could have predicted this race. This is just yet another development. We're obviously going to carry the remarks of her husband and her, bring them to you. John King, it's interesting when you look at her background, a lot of people have underestimated this woman time and time again. When she ran for mayor, we heard from her father, who said that no one really expected she could unseat an incumbent. Let's listen in.
Governor and the next Vice President of the United States of America, Sarah Palin.